Hello, everyone, again, and welcome to our other lessons for the introduction to statistics and probability class. So today we will be looking at a very important topic, which is like importing data. So far, we have been using data that is inbuilt in R, something like the M-sleep data, the air quality data, even the student survey data that we use for the homework. So there are cases that you might have your own data that you want to analyze. How do you go about importing that data in R and then doing all the analysis that you want to do? So that is what we are going to be looking at today. So first things first, I'm going to load a new R script file, and I can try to save it. I can just save this file, and I locate my. So one thing I want you to do is the folder that you are working or doing all your project in. That is where I want you to always keep the data. When you have a data, you can keep it in that folder. There are different ways you can read that data uh, from that folder. But if you have it in that folder, you can always just call the name of that data set, and then which is easier to read. So we are going to see the various ways. So there are different kind of files that we are going to see when it comes to importing files. We're going to have something like the comma separated value. We can have Excel files like X. We can also have, it should be XS or something like that for Excel. Let me and then we can also have what we call text files, which is could be something like txt, or yeah, just something like this. If you have data of this form, how do you read it from R? So one thing we are going to be working with today is a common data set. I already have that data set. I'm going to show you the data set. If I come here and open, not just open, go to this my folder here, I'm going to show you that data set, which is I'm calling it the philosophy. Where is that data set? Yeah, this data set. This is what we are going to be using. We are going to see how you see that data is in form of both a CSV file and an Excel sheet. So how do you read this data into R, and then you do some of the analysis that you want to do with it? So that is what we are going to be looking at. So there are different ways. If it is a CSV file, you can do in R read.csv. It's already inbuilt. And if it is a text file, we are going to see how we can read all these files and so on. So since we are reading these this data already inside a folder that I know all my projects are in, I will show something. So most of the times, I recommend that you put your data set in a folder that you create, that you're doing your project in. Let me just put something here and show you. Let's say I have something like this. This is my project. I can go to the desktop. All these things are under the summer, and then here you see I'm having arrow and start. I go under notes. So here I can paste my data set. This is a data set we are going to be using for this demonstration, how we can read it. To check whether that data set is comma separated, you can right click on that data and take properties. When you take properties, you should be having something like this. If you come to security, you can see that 5 part. The 5 part, you're going to see the location and the name of that file. You see that this file is what? It's a CSV file, which is a .csv. Also, to check, we can check this other one, which is I think this one is an Excel sheet. You can click here, same thing, and try to do that security. But when we check this one, we will see that it is an Excel file. It's not a CSV. That's one thing we can do. We are going to see how we can read this data by using that location as well as just getting it from the folder, since our project is in the same location where we have our data, which is what I will always advise most of the times. But if you do not know that, if you do not want to paste that data in the same location where you're keeping your project, there is still a way you can look for that data set and read it, which we are going to see it as we move on. So let's go back to our lesson. So I already have that data. I know where it is in that location. I'm also going to be putting this data set in if I post this on the WhatsApp group, or maybe also on YouTube, I'm going to put the link to this data so that you can try to do it by yourself. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm trying to import that data. Since I know it is a CSV file, I'll just do imported underscore data. As I did mention, we know how to assign this in R. I'm going to do read dot. So if I start taking read dot, we are going to have different things here. It could be a table, it could be there are different things like it is CSV2, CSV1, it doesn't matter. It is a CSV file. So when I read that file, because it is a string, I'm just going to do the name of that data was philosophers, I think so, yeah. Philosophers.csv, and then I can run this. Let's just why is this not so we see that in this file it is saying that the data set is not in your current working directory, because it's not, we don't know the current working directory, that's why we are having this problem. So how do we get that current working directory? So one thing we can do in R, if you want to know where the current working directory is so that you can change and not have this kind of error, you can do get wd in bracket. So I'm going to get in here, I will need to know my current working directory, get wd, and then let's run it and see what happens. You see that my current working directory is found where? It's under my desktop, which is OneDrive, under what? Under documents. That is why I am unable to read this data directly. So I will need to change that working directory so that I can, I can read my file easily. So instead of doing that most of the times, we can instead do that file path location, like the file path we got. Instead of doing this, in Python, you won't have this issue, but in R, you are going to keep having this unless you change that current working directory. I don't always want to change the current working directory most of the times. So what I'm going to do, I will go back to, I'm going to go back to that my location, which is where I have that my data set. I open it as I'm having it here, and then I'm going to go in here, and then I locate that philosophy data, which is the CSV file I want, which is this one. I will right click on it, I take properties. When I take properties, I come to security, and then I'm going to copy this file path. I would simply copy it, and then when I copy it, I don't want it here, I go back to my arrow in here, and then I paste it. It's a little bit long, but it's going to read what I want. So most of the times, if you do not want to go through that 5-part in Windows, you're going to have that. But if it is a Mac operating system, you won't really see this most of the time. So one thing I want to do is, instead of having this long thing in here as a not being explicit, it's too long. So what I'm going to do as a good programming practice is to take this out. I'll cut it, Control C, and then I can just call it under here like a file path. I know the path to that file, and then square bracket, I paste this location there. I can paste this location there, I can run it. Let me see what is happening. Yeah, so because it's Windows, make sure that you have these changes to double backslashes before it can work. Yeah. Yeah. expand it so that you can see what is happening. So you see that it is running. For Mac operating systems, you wouldn't have that issue. So when I do that, it will be easier for me to read that file location. And so when I do this, the next thing I'm going to do to read that CSV file from there, what I'm going to do, I'll just do read underscore CSV. I pass in that file underscore file underscore path. No, file underscore path, which is what we have here, and then we can run it. You see that that data is imported. So since the data has been imported, what can I do? I can just do the different ways we have been viewing that data. I can do view. I pass in imported data, and then I run this. You see, we can view how that data looks like. You see, we have a column which is the name of the philosopher, the description of that philosopher, when that philosopher was born. We see some of these. It's negative, when he died, and the rating he had, and so on. We are going to see how we can, it's just a basic data. You see that it's not that, the number of rows are not that many. And we can also do, we can do different things. Like maybe if we want to do, we can also do head of that imported data, just to see same thing is going to happen, but it's going to like be under that the arrow script. So that is one way we can read all these comma separated files from from any location in arrow. Also, we can do, if it was an Excel sheet, because I did mention if it was an Excel sheet, because you wouldn't be able to use that technique to read that Excel sheet because it's not a CSV file. Let's see how we can go about that. The first thing you need to do, you need to install this package, which is install.packages. You pass in, we know how to install packages. It will be open xlxs extension, which is xlxs. I run it. So it's installing that. Well, so we see that it has installed it. So let's see how we can import an Excel file. So I'm going to do import underscore Excel. And so same way that we did with the this philosopher data, we also have that same philosopher data in that same location. I'm going to be pasting this data so that you can try it by yourself. We still have that data in here, which is the Excel one. The Excel one, if I right click here, I should see the properties. For properties, I'm going to come to security and then copy this location. We see that the extension is an Excel sheet, and then I'll take this out, and then I'm going to call this file underscore path. I'll just call file underscore path underscore Excel. Then I'll assign it. Then I need a square bracket, shift, and then I paste that location. Remember to always put, since it's Windows, you need to change this to double backslashes. I can read this directly from that location. But I'm going to later on in this lesson show you how we can change that working directory and then try to read that file from the working directory. So I'm going to do import underscore Excel and then assign it. It will be read dot what dot x. Since it's an Excel sheet, we are going to do I need to first of all remember I installed that library. Okay, I need to first of all call the library I installed. So I'll do library library. I call the name of that library, which is open this one. I run it, and then I can do import underscore excel assign. Then I'm going to do read dot x. Yeah, see, we have this already, and then I'm simply going to pass in what? File underscore path. No, path underscore this excel. I run it. We see that we have that file imported. We can also view it. It will be same like the other one we had, but it will be instead an Excel sheet. So this is how we see we can import this data if we have it downloaded into a particular location, if we have our own personal data that we want to work with, and so on. This is the way you import this data. For the next lesson, we are going to see how we can import this data which doesn't have columns. How do we add these columns? We can see that this data set already have the columns like names, description, born, disease, and the rating of that philosopher. There are some cases you might not have these columns. You have these columns like a description. How do you add these columns when you read this data? That will be in the next lesson, where we are going to see we can change the names of those columns, and also we see how we can change the current working directory instead of just copying this 5 part, which is a little bit longer. Thank you so much, guys, and keep following for more.